Okay, so this is the third video for this making of this Schiaparelli dress. We're going to start with adjusting the fabrics, and then eventually we need to place in the eyelets, and our dress is almost done. So I'm starting by selecting all of these, and you will see here they are just on the standard default fabric 1. This is a good fabric to start off, but now it's time to choose some other fabric, so feel free to play around and find something from your library that you like. For the dress we obviously want something relatively stiff, but I will also show you how to adjust it further if needed. Just another look here. It's definitely shiny. The good thing on Clo is you can actually choose denim and make it look shiny, right? So there are lots of different options for the 3D, but this is the kind of, we want a smooth fabric. It doesn't look very textured or anything like that. Okay, so you can always type in here, for example, you say, no, I think this might be a silk. You can have a look here. I will choose the silk faye and add that to my workspace. And now I can adjust the different things. So selecting the fabric here, you have in your property editor all the options for this fabric change. So first of all, I will make this shiny. Secondly, I will choose a color. Oh, sorry, not in here, in here. And yeah, so you can choose in lots of different ways. You could select something on here as a starting point, and then you can also move it around and just pick something you actually like. It could be slightly more. Okay, anyway, so you can play around and pick a color. And the next thing, I have strengthening applied, so I will actually deselect that for the minute, otherwise we will not see our changes. Okay, and then also here just make sure you have the fabric as your textured surface. I have not applied the fabric yet, so I just dropped it into my object browser, but I haven't applied the fabric, so I can select all pattern pieces and tick a sign, or I can actually drag it onto the pieces as well. Okay, so next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my fabric property editor, and we're going to look into the different physical properties of the fabric. So let me actually just make this a bit bigger so you can see better. So it starts off as a custom, so you can have, like, because we selected a fabric, so each fabric will have its own properties. So if you have a look at the denim fabric, you will get an idea. So this, the first 1, 2, 3 are all about, sorry, 4 are about stretch. Actually, there's a lot more now in the older version, there were not as many. Then you have bending. Bending is kind of to say stiffness. And then you have buckling and buckling stiffness that focuses on the draping of the fabric. Also have internal damping and friction. They're used more on animation and weight and thickness. Okay, so let's have a look. My fabric here has stretch. I'm going to leave the stretch for now. I'm going to start with the bending, because the bending is the stiffness, and that's what I want to create. So we could, you want to increase things and have a look, play around with it, but it could be quite a bit stiffer. So just bringing up those numbers. You can also just type in here. And just see when you simulate what it looks like. It's not too much of a change. So let's try to play with it further. Okay, now you could see this kind of got it up more round, and that's what I'm after. I want this to sit wider in this area. I'm actually quite happy with that, so you can play around. You can also try to adjust the buckling stiffness here. I did try and found like it doesn't make a huge difference, so I stick with the bending properties for this moment. Just so you know, also the stretch, basically the higher the number, the less stretchy the fabric. So the lower the number, the stretchier the fabric. Okay, so at the moment, and stretch doesn't mean that it will it is a knit necessary. It's not so much about is the elastan in it or anything like that. It's just the behavior of the fabric. So you can basically take a denim and play around, make them kind of more drapey and things like that. And then the next thing we can also do in general is you can always bond fabric. So bonding means it's kind of like applying fusing. So when you have your pattern pieces and you scroll down under fabrics, there's a bond, and you can click on bond. And when you have bond, it shows, it's actually quite similar to the color that we have, that I have chosen, but it's always like this pinkish peach color that shows that any kind of fabric is bonded. And then you can also select the kind of fusing you want, and if you want something quite stiff, you go for the pocket bone. That's a little bit of stiffer fabric, and again it just gives you a little bit more stiffness to the fabric. So it's the fabric properties together with the bonding that made it, but I think I still like the bonding because it gives it the structure. Just need to pull it into place before I freeze it. Okay, so now that I'm happy with my skirt, I've moved the bonings again. I made sure that that's why I left the lines there for now. The lines that are on, that we have drawn before and they need to be on top, are on top, or at least mostly. And so that I'm happy with the overall look of the curves that I get from the hemline of my skirt part. And once that is good, you can select all of the skirt pieces and freeze them. Okay, so now the color of my skirt is getting, of my dress getting a bit funny. What you can do here in trim display, not in fabric, it is a fabric but it actually falls under trim display, is show bond scav, so that's then hiding the pinkish color. However, the freeze and the strengthening, you cannot hide the blue color, but once you go into render, you will see that it is not showing. So neither the strengthening nor the freezing will actually show in the render. Okay, so we can leave that as it is for now. So bringing back my twill pieces, I actually think, besides wanting to make it denser and everything, I believe I need to make the skirt part bigger, because if you have a look, there's so much fullness, and if you have worked with twill before, you know how many meters you need to make kind of this density. So I would say that would definitely adjust it, probably not to what we would do in real life, but still further. So if I pick up this pattern piece and just go into my edit pattern tool and start dragging it, see what happens. I would be dragging only the last part, so it will completely unproportional. And before we calculated to make sure that you know, we have our up points and down points in the correct location. So therefore what you want to do is you want to go into transform pattern, selecting the whole pattern piece and then dragging it in length only. So this is a bit untypical, this is not how we usually do it. And then you can still press Control and enter with, and I think I'm gonna add like another 180 centimeters, something like that. What will happen now is that Clo3D will go a little bit crazy with this change, but let's have a look. So it may take some time, but I think it is worth doing. So let's just see. And then I will do the same for the back as well. So transform pattern, drag the pattern piece, holding shift, control. I don't actually think you need shift. Anyway, typing in whatever measurement you choose to do. And then one thing, when the fabric is very light, it bounces around, it goes everywhere. So what is a lot better to do is to change the fabric weight first. Since our skirt is frozen into place, now is the good time to do so. So in here, scrolling all the way down, and I'm gonna start with 20 and then simulate. Oh, I haven't unfrozen this, sorry, activated this piece. My second skirt piece, this is it. It looks just a bit strange now. Activate. Now, and then for the, if your dress part is really stuck in here under the shoes particular, I think the easiest way, there's a couple of things you can do. Strengthen the fabric first of all, because then it comes out easier by itself. And then another option you can use is putting the monochrome fabric, because the sheerness doesn't help in understanding where you are, where your pieces need to go. What you can also do is, like I'm still stuck in here with the shoes and the fabric, so just shortening it for the moment will also help, hopefully. I'll simulate again. There we go, almost. So there's a lot of fullness now, so it's all not sitting kind of as flat, but it's just a matter of time and letting it kind of unfold, detangle, and eventually it will sit right. So once that all sits nicely again, it looks pretty awful. Yeah, put it back to the textured fabric, and also the strengthening can be removed. And it will start to look good again. And then just back to the fabric adjustments. In your object browser, when you select your twill, you can also adjust the properties of it, of course. So as I said before, the stretch is mostly focusing on the stretchiness of the fabric, which you can play with and test it out, but I think will not make too much of a difference here. And the bending, I don't think I wanted any stiffer, so I will not play with that either. The draping is something you can definitely adjust. So if the bending is very high, obviously the fabric is stiffer, and therefore it will drape less. Okay, so here, if you have a look at our buckling stiffness, mine is quite high, so you could try to lower this and have a look what it looks like. So just have a look and play around with that. And now it folds down a lot more. You see a massive difference, right? So have a look at that. Also here there's a lot of, before I applied the weight to it, I put the weight at 20, the fabric was kind of bouncing out in that direction because it was very light. So that's something you also want to make sure that it doesn't look like that. And yeah, so that looks a lot better. Way too short now, of course. So I need to bring back my length. just one more thing with the color here. It's still looking green, of course. So when you go into your fabric and you choose a color, so I even use the eyedropper and pick the fabric from the dress, let's say, and then you need to press escape to get out of the eyedropper, and then you press apply and close. So you go into your fabric and you can see the color is actually the color that you want, but it still looks green. And you also check that you're on a thick textured fabric and it still looks like this. Then you can check your base color map. So the base color at the moment here is this greenish color, and I will change the base color to, actually could be either this one or that one. I think this one is just a bit denser. Let's try this one. And then also you will see here when you go on to switch, like applying this, now we actually have more of the color that we want. To create the back of the dress, to add all these beautiful eyelets and the tie, and you can also see there's not skin behind. Instead we have a panel that is the same color of the fabric, so we need to insert that as well. So we've got 7 eyelets, and if you have a look, the spacing is quite even, and they start right away from the top and go all the way to the seam here, I would say. So all those kind of things need to be done, and yeah, then we're almost done with our dress.